Nico Wizzy is my name. Welcome to this exciting edition of Top Corner Worldwide. We start with the Premier League. Yes, the Premier League 2025-2026 season started with so much expectation, and of course on Friday we saw the game between Liverpool and AFC Bournemouth, where it was quite a very big it came with a lot of expectation anyways, and of course Liverpool won 4-2 against the AFC Bournemouth with goals coming from Uwe Ekitike, Cody Gakpo, Federico Chiesa, and then Mohamed Salah. Federico Chiesa was actually almost on his way out of Liverpool, but of course it looks like he's going to stay back because of the way he has impacted lately, especially with the game against Bournemouth, when he had a very wonderful outing. And of course for Antoine Semenyo, he, despite having some issues as regards to racist chants from fans, he still managed to score twice against Liverpool at Anfield. And of course we also saw the continuation of the beginning of the La Liga as well. We had Girona losing to Rayo Vallecano at home, and then Villarreal also defeated Real Oviedo, newly promoted Liga side Real Oviedo, by 2-0. Rennes also defeated Olympique Marseille by 1-0. The German Bundesliga, there was no German Bundesliga over the weekend. It was just DFB Cup, which had Salzburg up losing to Magdeburg, and of course some other games played out there in the German DFB Cup. And of course we have Arminia Bielefeld. They defeated Werder Bremen by 1-0. And of course the matches in the Premier League continued, most especially on Saturday, where it was quite a huge success at the end of the day for some teams in the Premier League. Aston Villa played out a 0-0 draw against Newcastle United at Villa Park. At Brighton at the Farmers Stadium, they played a 1-1 draw against Fulham, and in that game as well, Matt O'Reilly was also on target for the Seagulls, and then Rodrigo Muniz, who is almost out of Fulham because of the links with Atlanta, also equalized towards the closing minutes of that very game. And of course for Sunderland, they came with a lot of ambitious signings during the transfer window, and of course that actually paid off, especially in their game against West Ham United, where they were able to get 3-0 victory against the Hammers. Eliezer Mayenda, Daniel Ballard, and of course Wilson Isdor, all on target for the Blackcats. And of course for Tottenham Hotspur, they were able to get a convincing 3-0 victory against Burnley. We had Richarlison with the double, and then Brennan Johnson, after scoring in the Europa League final against Manchester United last season, also continued to impress for Tottenham. This time he was on target for scores. And of course we have Wolverhampton Wanderers. They lost to Manchester City. We expected surprises in this game, especially the fact that in the past we have seen Wolves defeat Manchester City in the past, but then this time it didn't get to happen like that. And so it was Erling Haaland with the double, Tijani Reinders, the new signing for Manchester City, on target for City, and then we have Ryan Cherki also scoring on his Premier League debut for Manchester City. And of course a 4-0 victory for City at the end of the day. RCD Mallorca, they lost 3-0 to FC Barcelona, with a very convincing victory coming from Barcelona this time. We have Manu Moranes of Mallorca, and then Vidat Murik, both sent off in that very game. We have Ferran Torres and Rafinha, both on target for FC Barcelona, including Lamine Yamal, also on target for Barcelona. We had other results in the La Liga, like Deportivo Alaves. They defeated Levante by 2-1. Levante just got promoted newly. Valencia played out a 1-1 draw against Real Sociedad. And of course we had RC Lens. They lost in the French Ligue 1. They lost to Lyon. AS Monaco were 3-1 winners against Le Havre. We have also OGC Nice. They lost to Toulouse. Then for the DFL Super Cup in the German Bundesliga, not in the German Bundesliga actually, but of course the Super Cup, the winners of the DFB Pokal Cup and the winners of the Bundesliga, they were actually quite, it was a very good outing for Bayern Munich at the end of the day. They won 2-1 against VfB Stuttgart, and of course in that game it was an opportunity for Luis Diaz to score his first ever goal for Bayern Munich. And then we had Harry Kane also scoring for Bayern Munich as well. Remember, Luis Diaz just recently left Liverpool and signed for Bayern Munich as we speak, and now he has really made an impact at the club by scoring in the DFL Super Cup final. And of course, we had also on Sunday the matches in the Premier League continued. This time in the Premier League, it was Chelsea having a barren draw against Crystal Palace. Everybody expected Chelsea to win that game against Crystal Palace, but sadly it did not go their way. And so at the end of the day, Crystal Palace quite showed the reason why they are actually giant killers. Because you look at Crystal Palace, you understand that Crystal Palace lately have won they won the FA Cup last season, and against Liverpool, against Manchester City, they won the FA Cup, and then against Liverpool, they were able to get their first ever Community Shield title after beating Liverpool on penalties. And then Nottingham Forest showed why they are still they are ready for the new season. They actually defeated Brentford by 3-1. On that very day, it was Dan Ndoye scoring on his Premier League debut. Chris Wood, as usual, showed why he's the number one striker for Nottingham Forest, scoring twice. He had a very stellar performance last season, and he's still having that for this new season. 3-1 against Brentford. At the end of the day, Igor Thiago, he has had a problem since he joined, injuries and lack of match fitness since he joined Brentford. But then he scored his first goal for the club against Nottingham Forest. At the end of the day, quite a very huge victory for Nottingham Forest at City Ground. And of course, the Arsenal-Manchester United rivalry was renewed also on Sunday when Manchester United lost to Arsenal. It was a very, very wonderful outing for Manchester United. Despite the fact that they lost, they had a very good game. They tried to get the goals. They did their best to get the goals, but then at the end of the day, it still couldn't work out that way. For Arsenal had a very wonderful performance as well. But of course, Arsenal needed, when you look at it, you also understand Arsenal needs to improve as regards to the way they score goals. And of course, the goal scored by Ricardo Calafiori was the only goal Arsenal needed to be able to get the maximum 3 points in that very game. And of course, we also had the La Liga games as well. Celta Vigo, they lost to Getafe. We had the Athletic Club playing a 3-2 victory against Sevilla. At the end of the day, Sevilla were able to continue in their lack of form. Of course, Sevilla are lacking firepower in front of goals. They have had issues since last season, and of course, they have changed coaches to that effect. But at the end of the day, Sevilla still lost that very game, and we had Espanyol defeating Atletico Madrid. What a surprise! We didn't expect that to happen, but of course, it happened. That's football for you. At the end of the day, it was Julian Alvarez who scored the only goal that still was not enough for Atletico Madrid to win their game against Espanyol. They actually lost that very game. In France, it was Stade Brestois playing out a 3-3 draw against Lille, and of course, we also had Angers SCO. They were able to get an important victory against newly promoted Paris FC. Uzere, they defeated Lorient by 1-0. Metz, they lost to Strasbourg. Nantes, they lost to PSG. PSG had a very wonderful performance in that very game. Vitinha with the only goal of the game, the Portuguese midfielder scoring for PSG. Of course, this is where we'll be coming to the end of the show. It has been Top Corner Worldwide. Nico Wizzy remains my name. Then, bye for now.